Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AED podcast. And let's hear from our primary sponsor, Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD podcast. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. We have a Sideline Interactive video score table in our gym, and it is fantastic. A tremendous product you should get at your school. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo to see their tables and boards in action and see what these fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Check out what their fantastic products can do for you. We also want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also give the 95% of the players and the parents who love your program a voice and helps demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466. You can also email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. That's info@athleticsurveys.com. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your program from good to great. We also want to thank Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement, and Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing, for their support of the Educational AD podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD podcast. Today we're visiting with Deran Coe. Deran is a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics for the Wake County Public Schools in Cary, North Carolina, an enormous school district, 15th largest in the country. And we also want to throw out some congratulations. Deran was recently named the 2021 North Carolina Athletic Director of the Year. So Deran, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you having me, and thanks for what you've been doing over the past year and a half to keep people up to date and engaged through your podcast. So it's been really great to listen to, and I'm honored to be on today. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. I just posted this the other day. Yesterday, I did 2 interviews. One was with an AD in Georgia, big public school, actually an old friend from his Florida days. And then a couple hours later, I got to interview someone on the other end of their career, a young gal in South Florida, her very first job as an AD, and just the stories, them sharing their mentors and what's inspired them and the tools that they suggested. It just charges me up. So I'm going to keep doing these things as long as, people like you keep listening. So thank you very much. Well, let's go and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ended up at your current position in charge of all these schools.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, a small little town, Probably the closest town that anybody would have heard of would be Aliquippa. I grew up next to Aliquippa, which is kind of a football hotbed. Lots of NFL players have come out of there, and it's an old mill town that has seen its challenges over the years. But I grew up just outside of there. I'm the son of a coach and teacher, and my mom was in healthcare. She was a nurse, and then just an awesome person. So growing up in Western Pennsylvania, I kind of had the most leave it to beaver life you could have had. I had two great parents who were there and worked hard for us, my two brothers and myself. After graduating high school, I was a soccer player in high school, baseball as well, junior varsity, and then focused on soccer junior and senior year, and gave up baseball. But went on to Clarion University of Pennsylvania to pursue a degree in education, and I actually played collegiate rugby at Clarion University, and really enjoyed my time at Clarion University. Right after graduation, I moved to North Carolina. Initially, I was a kindergarten teacher, so my first 4.5 years in education, right out of college, I taught kindergarten at a small school in Franklin County, which is just north of Wake County. And my career kind of progressed there. The high school was interested in starting a soccer program, the nearby high school. My now wife was teaching there at that time. We were friends at the time, and she told me that they were looking for a coach. So I threw my name into the ring, applied for the job. I was coaching just kind of youth recreation soccer in the area, and I was given the opportunity to start both the men's and women's soccer programs at Franklinton High School back in the early 2000s. From there, I then went back and got my certification in physical education, moved over to the high school to teach at the high school I was coaching at. And shortly thereafter, I had a great mentor in Lester Wilder, who was the athletic director, and he retired a couple years later, and I took over as athletic director when he retired. So that's kind of my journey into athletic administration. Shortly thereafter, I got engaged with the NIAAA and the North Carolina Athletic Directors Association through the leadership training workshops, through LTI classes and so forth, which really helped me grow a lot. I was hired shortly after that in 2010. I became the athletic director at Wake Forest Rollsville High School here in Wake County, the district I'm in now. I was the athletic director there for 2.5 years, 3 years before this position opened up when Bobby Guthrie retired. I applied for this position after getting my degree in administration, my master's from Gardner-Webb University in executive leadership with a principalship, and moved into this position. And I've been here going on 9 years, and I love every day of it.
Again, I just love to hear the stories and the steps that lead to that next step, which lead to the next step. We don't just end up, in that, let's say, that dream position. So very cool. Deran, you touched on mentorship, and it's so important in our profession. So share with our listeners some more mentors that you had, again, maybe family members or coaches growing up or people that you've worked with or worked for. Who can you call out that helped get you where you're at today?
Well, I mean, I think ultimately the first two have to be my mom and dad, right? Dad, like I said earlier, was a coach, a longtime coach. He coached multiple sports, was mainly a golf coach, but also coached baseball and basketball at Hopewell High School in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. And he just was an incredibly hardworking man and worked tirelessly, nonstop to take care of the family and to be there for us. He made time to coach myself and my brothers while he was teaching and coaching at the high school. He also had a second job wallpapering, to make ends meet, teaching night classes at the community college. So just that work ethic, that strong work ethic that he instilled in me, I think that's probably one of the big influences that I have to say my dad is a huge mentor to me. In addition, my mom is just the most kind and caring person in the world. When I say I had a Leave It to Beaver childhood, I really did, because of just her compassion. She just never has a bad thing to say about anyone. She sees the good in people. And being the youngest of the brothers, the youngest child in the family, I had a lot of her attention and probably had more time with her in my childhood, just being home with her after my brothers went on to elementary school. So spending time reading together and just seeing her compassion for people and how much she cared and how much she gave. So that servant heart that my mom had and still has now And I see it when she's with my own two kids now as an awesome grandmother. I think that is probably the second, my mom and dad, but just two big parts of who I am. The work ethic and the compassion and the caring for others, I think, are two huge pieces. And then I mentioned my brothers. I have two brothers. I'm the youngest of three boys, and my oldest brother, Brian, is also in athletics. He is the VP of operations for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre, I'm sorry, I'm going to say that wrong, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, which is the minor league affiliate of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's been with the Penguins organization for over 20 years in some fashion. So, his influence, again, that work ethic and that he has, that was instilled from our dad, is there. And my other brother, Jason, same way, has a degree in sports administration and is out working in business now, not in the sports field, but just that, having two older brothers who kind of show you the way and show you how to treat people and how to be kind and caring and compassionate and hardworking. I think those are my major influences in my life who made me who I am. In athletic administration, it would have to be Coach Lester Wilder, who I mentioned earlier. He was my AD and hired me into my first coaching job. We lost Coach Wilder this past year. He was just a tremendous person. He grew up through the time of segregation in a rural town in North Carolina, and he never ever met a stranger. He taught me, kind of a Yankee who came down to the South. He taught me to slow down, get to know people, care about people in a way that's not just transactional, and he didn't use those words, but he was just a down-to-earth guy who showed me how far a smile and a handshake and a listening ear can go. So he really was my first big mentor in athletic administration, helped grow me into the coach that I wanted to be. And then also there were a couple others who I didn't work directly with, but they were athletic directors and coaches at partner schools or schools we played against. David Hicks, who was in Vance County, Coach Brent Walston, both just tremendous people who welcomed me with open arms when I was a very young AD at that time and kind of showed me the ropes on how to handle different difficult situations. And then certainly, I think anybody who has come up in athletic administration in North Carolina has had to have had an impact, been impacted by Jerry Mcgee and Roy Turner. Jerry was just a tremendous national award-winning, National Hall of Fame athletic administrator who was our guiding light in athletic administration in North Carolina for so long. He was our executive director of the Athletic Directors Association and just served endlessly until his last days about 2 years ago when Jerry passed on. And then Roy Turner, as I mentioned, who is now also a great friend, not just a mentor, but a great friend of mine. He is our current executive director of the Athletic Directors Association. And anybody who's involved in the NIAAA certainly knows Roy from his time on the board, his teaching of LTI classes. He's brought me onto the faculty here in North Carolina and has helped kind of pave a path for me to become involved in the NIAAA and outside of North Carolina. And he's very similar, just that compassion that Roy leads with and seeing how much he cares and how much he pours into others. It's been a huge, huge impact and continues to be. And I'm really happy and proud to call him my friend. So those are kind of the North Carolina folks. And then, certainly on the national level, being blessed enough to be involved with the NIAAA, Daryl Nance, I'm sure his name has come up quite a few times on these podcasts. Daryl is just a couple hours down the road in South Carolina, and we talk quite a bit. He's always willing to lend an ear or lend a hand or, kind of share any difficulties back and forth as we have similar positions in our districts now. And then there's another, Bill Curran, who is, when I first took over this position, he's in Fairfax County, Virginia. He's the district administrator for athletics in Fairfax County. Bill kind of called me and we worked together on some big national projects with USA Football and some other things. And I kind of see Wake County, North Carolina as Fairfax, Virginia 20 years later. So the growth that he has seen in their district is the growth that we're seeing in our district now. And so a lot of those challenges, he's helped me to get through them. A couple others, Ronnie Carter, who's the retired executive director from the Tennessee Athletics Association. He I've done some work with the sport of stunt, which is a hybrid of cheer and gymnastics.
Right.
And Ronnie's involved with that organization. And through that opportunity, we found out that he actually has family here in Wake County. So we've interacted quite a bit, and he's been a great mentor to me. And then the last group I would say is just some that maybe don't see themselves as mentors to me, but they're more colleagues. But just watching their leadership in the NIAAA has helped has helped me to grow just by watching others and paying attention to what others do, like Becky Moran, Jamie Sheet, Dennis Robinson, and then the whole FIAAA group of Andy Chiles, Russell Womble, and then the others from Section 3, like Mike Ellison. And they're just, I couldn't name everybody, but Section 3 just has a tremendous group of leaders who my involvement with the Section 3 meetings has helped me a lot along the way. And then watching Phil and Mike and the way they lead the NIAAA, I think all of those folks in one way or another have impacted me, and I still lean on a lot of them to this day. If I were to say, if anybody's looking for a mentor or looking for a group to help broaden their horizons or grow, is the cohorts through the NIAAA. I was lucky to be in the cohort that was led by Becky Moran, and it was just a tremendous growth time for me. So those are kind of the folks who I would say are my mentors along the way. And I know that was kind of long-winded, but you just, when you've been so lucky and blessed to have had the opportunity to interface with great leaders, you can kind of talk about them for a long time. And I feel very strongly about a lot of those individuals.
No, I'm really glad you did. You painted such a rich picture. I mean, starting with your parents, I was getting emotional there. I got my work ethic from my dad, very stoic, but, very hardworking guy, very supportive. And then I think my heart, from my mom, no question. So some similarities there. But all those people that touched your life, early on, and then you talked about your North Carolina connection. And certainly I've got a chance to get to know Roy Turner the last couple of years. I was the president of our state AD association, FIAAA, last year, and just through the podcast. And then you're branching out to Daryl Nance and, nationally. And the names you mentioned, Becky Moran, Jamie Sheets, the three of us were in the very first cohort with Daryl Nance. And it's just such a great, our organization is just such a great organization for being mentored and then developing mentors for that next generation. So really, really glad you, like I said, painted that picture. For listeners, we are visiting with Deran Coe, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and the Director of Athletics for the Wake County Schools in North Carolina. We're going to be back, but let's take a quick break and hear from our primary podcast sponsor, Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. We're back with Deran Coe. Deran, we already established, you're a certified master athletic administrator, but we have a lot of younger listeners, younger ADs that listen, and I think it's important to share the journey that we've all taken. So take us through that path of, how did you first become aware of the LTI program and earning your CAA, and then tell us a little bit about your CMAA project.
Sure. So I took over into my first athletic director role. It was a mid-year hire. So Lester Wilder, who I had mentioned earlier, retired in December, and I took over in January of in the middle of a school year. One of the things he told me on the way out was, Deran, here's the paperwork for the North Carolina Athletic Directors Association State Conference. You need to go. And he said, it's a great time to relax, take your wife, enjoy yourself, but get engaged, and there's some really smart people there, is kind of the way Lester said it. Get to know them and learn from them. So I did that. I immediately, 2 months after I was hired as an athletic director for the first time, I went to Asheville for our state conference that year and took a couple of LTI classes and immediately realized, yeah, this is the hydrant that I need to be drinking from. All of this great information provided by these incredible instructors, all of these things that I hadn't even thought of, right? When we talk about taking the legal classes, 506, 508, and how that can kind of blow your mind a little bit as a new athletic director who has just taken over a program, can kind of scare you, but it's information that you need to know. So once I took a couple of those classes at the state conference, I kind of became hooked. And then I took a lot of classes out of order. I wasn't working towards certification in my mind. I was just taking the courses that I was interested in. I knew there was a certification that existed after the first course. Certainly it's discussed in any course. But really, I was just picking topics of courses that I thought I could grow from. And then about a year or two later, maybe after my second or third state conference, I said, all right, well, I need to work on this certification. And I looked at the alignment of the 501, 502, and 504 and so forth towards CAA, and did that over the next few years, completed that certification, took the test. I have some great instructors here in North Carolina. And I don't think I started going to national conferences until somewhere around 2009 or so. And so just really the instructors here in North Carolina just kind of whet my appetite for that professional development that's available through the LTI. So after I completed my certification and took the test and passed the test for my CAA, I probably a year or so later, I wanted to earn that CMAA. And I kind of realized it really wasn't while it certainly is not an easy task, it's not something that you have to invent. If you're working in athletic administration, you likely have some project that you could use towards your CMAA as your CMAA project. And that's exactly what I did. When I came into this job, it was 2013, we were under a Title IX investigation from the Office of Rights regarding participation numbers. So it was when I came into that, we were Bobby Guthrie, who, by the way, I very mistakenly left out my mentors. Bobby Guthrie is one of my tremendous mentors. And still to this day, I call on Bobby. He was in my role before me, and he's National Hall of Famer as well. So I would be remiss if I didn't add him to that very strong mentor list. But back to the CMAA, I was working on the growth of female sports in our district, and we were adding the sport of stunt as a new sport in Wake County to satisfy the need and interest of our female student athletes. So we just determined that there were so many cheerleaders who were cheerleading year round, and we treat our cheerleaders as athletes. We know they are. We know it's a very competitive and difficult sport to do. So we figured, well, they love this sport. These numbers don't actually count when we talk about Office of Civil Rights and Title IX. But this sport of stunt is going in that direction because it truly is a team versus team head-to-head competition. So that was my project, was how we implemented the sport of stunt in North Carolina, in Wake County specifically. And it's the step-by-step ways we did that and all of the pieces of my work that became part of that project. That was my CMA project. And I think I completed that in 2013 or 14, somewhere around that time.
Again, I'm so glad you share the process, and a very significant point. I was on the NIAAA certification committee for many years, and that was the message that we tried to deliver, is that you don't have to create something out of scratch. That just look at what you do right now as an athletic administrator, and there's at least 3 or 4, if not dozens, of potential projects that you're already doing. You just have to put together the story and then share it with others. So great point. Also, I love what you did with cheerleading. A very long time ago, I took over as AD at a school, and cheerleading at that particular school was a club sport. And the director of that program was definitely, let's say they were rogue. And so we immediately absorbed cheerleading as a varsity JV and middle school sport as a way of controlling it. But it also, from an AD perspective, it was great, getting to meet those student athletes, and a lot of them were doing other sports too, maybe cheer in the fall and then soccer in the winter. So it was the right thing to do to take them into the athletic program. So
I also have to think if you take on a task like that, the opportunity for those student athletes to really reap the benefits of education-based athletics, right? If we have outside programs that are operating maybe in a silo outside of our athletic department, are they really understanding the value of interactions with other schools and what coaches and teachers do to help grow them as individuals? Certainly, there are some great club coaches out in the world, and many, I'm sure, who do instill some of those leadership abilities and some of the great things that come out of education-based athletics. But when we truly bring those programs under the umbrella of our school programs, it certainly can help those ideas and that growth of those student athletes into productive community members. It can really help that blossom.
oh, you're just so right. Great stuff. For listeners, we are visiting with Deran Coe, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, and the Athletic Director for the Wake County Public School System in North Carolina. We're going to take a quick break and hear from another sponsor, and then we'll be right back with our interview with Deran Coe. We want to thank one of our new sponsors, Sideline Interactive. And we actually have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it has been fantastic. I cannot recommend these guys enough. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo to see their tables and boards in action and see what these fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com, and check out their incredible scoring tables and video boards. Hey, we're back with our interview with Deran Coe from Wake County Schools in North Carolina. And again, for our listeners, we're recording this on September 1st, so it's going to be pretty timely when you're listening to it. Deran, we were talking, off camera, and we just kind of recently came out of the Olympics and just saw some tremendous performances. But we also had a much increased discussion, and it was a good thing, about this idea of social emotional health. Certainly, Simone Biles was very candid with some of the challenges that she experienced, and there's many, many more. So here's my question: how can an athletic director or a coach find a balance between, let's say an old school approach, come on, you got to be tough, you got to get back in there, versus being aware and sensitive to the challenges that a student athlete, a Generation Z student athlete, is facing each day? Do you have any advice for us?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think when we say the old school approach, I think there is no old school approach anymore. I think it just has to be the new approach. I think the way we were coached as kids is gone, and it should be gone. I mean, certainly there's some good points, and there are pieces of instilling that work ethic that we've talked about and how to overcome adversity. But that doesn't have to be. You don't have to coach in a way that is belittling or demeaning or tells student athletes to just get over it. I mean, that's just not the world we're in anymore. Things have changed, and coaches and athletic administrators have to change. We have to understand that every kid, every student athlete who comes onto our playing fields or steps through our gym door is going to be bringing some unique emotional baggage with them. Everybody is walking their own path. Everybody is dealing with their own issues, and not to go down the rabbit hole of discussing COVID related issues, but certainly there are things that everybody has dealt with over the past year and a half to 2 years that would put our student athletes in a different frame of mind when they come to the school building for participation in athletics or to the field. So we just always have to be cognizant that everybody is bringing something different with them when they come that day. We are teachers first. We are all teachers first, and we have to serve with a teacher's heart and a servant's heart, knowing that we're there for the kids. We're not there to coach the sport. We're there to coach the kids in the sport, right? And so if we lose that focus of putting the kids first, that's when that old school mentality of chewing people out and just pushing people through mindless running when it's not necessary as punishment and things of that nature just aren't the way anymore. We have to be there. We have to lend an ear to kids. We have to be aware of what they're going through. We have to have relationships, professional relationships with our kids so that we know what they're dealing with. We have to be able to have open lines of communication and also know how to guide those students who are dealing with difficult situations. We need to know our school counselors. We need to know our guidance departments. We need to know who the crisis folks are at our school so that if there is a situation that comes up that you aren't you aren't prepared to handle, or that you shouldn't handle, that we guide the kids in the direct path. When I was a kid, if like you said, Jake, it was suck it up and get over it. Well, that just can't be the way. We've lost too many kids who leave our programs, or God forbid, we have to deal with a student who dies of suicide, or is self-harming in some fashion. We have to be aware that that's really real, and it's more prevalent than it's been in the past. So we have to lead our kids with compassion. Yeah, it's fine every once in a while to have to, kind of get into it a little bit and encourage your kids in a different way. And, I'm not saying we can never raise our voices as coaches. Certainly, if that's what you need to do on occasion, that's fine. But we have to do it in a way that's going to uplift our kids and make sure that they continue to feel good about their progress, celebrate their successes, not just always demeaning and trying to bring them down a peg and hoping somebody else is going to bring them back up. I think those days are gone. You can't just rely on an assistant coach to bring your kids back up. You got to keep them up, and you've got to keep them in a positive frame of mind, because that's how we're going to get the most out of them. You're not going to get the most out of your kids by chewing them out and yelling at them. And certainly we can't lose sight of the fact that playing field, that gymnasium, that court, that's your classroom as a coach. We can't be doing things that are so drastically different than what would be acceptable in a classroom. And I think that's kind of the gist of it.
No, you're absolutely right, and I'm so glad that you mentioned those values of that work ethic and success. Those haven't changed, but the way that we achieve them now, it is in fact a different day. It's a different time. So great stuff. Once again, we're visiting with Deran Coe, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. We're going to come back with the Athletic Surveys Athletic Director Toolbox after we hear a little bit about that from our new sponsor. So stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way to collect data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives the 95% of the players and parents who really love your program a voice, and help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out our testimonials, and then call us at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your program from good to great. Well, Deran, this has been really cool having a chance to get to know you and hear a little bit more about your program, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the Athletic Director's Toolbox, which is now sponsored by Athletic Surveys. You are certainly an experienced AD and award-winning AD. Right now, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in your Athletic Surveys Athletic Director Toolbox?
So to try to get down to 3 that's hard, Jake. Taking over for a new athletic director walking in, the number of challenges in front of them are certainly large. But I think 3 key things that I've learned along the way, and I think the most important, and I'm still learning this, right? I think over the past 2 years, I've grown a lot in my first point, which is to be vulnerable, and to let others get to know you. I really, through my time in the cohort with the NIAAA, I really gained a better understanding that you can't try to lead in a way where you're never wrong, and that you don't, you kind of keep a face in between you and the people you work with. So I used to be a very different Deran at work and a very different Deran at home, and I didn't really let people get to know me. But so that whole idea of being vulnerable, admit when you don't know something or when you've made a mistake, don't try to pretend like you know it all, and that you don't make mistakes. Leaders don't have to always be right, but they do need to know how to work with others to correct mistakes, find solutions to problems. So I think that whole idea of vulnerability and letting people know that you are just as flawed as anybody else. But when you see a problem or you make a mistake, you're going to work collaboratively to come to a solution that is, best for the greater good, best for the kids that we serve, essentially. So I think that's number one, vulnerability. And to me, that's something that I'm still working on. And I feel like I've grown a lot on that over the past couple of years. Next, Jake, would be understanding that an athletic director needs to know that the title of the position does not define who you are, right? I think so often we try to take our title and make that who we are. Leadership as an athletic director is really your ability to serve and to influence others so that they can serve. So as an athletic director in my position, in a central service position, I serve my athletic directors, the 60 athletic directors in our district, 25 high school and 35 middle school. And my goal with those athletic directors, sure, certainly there are tasks I'm just checking off the boxes, and you have to do that occasionally. But I think serving them in a way that they are more prepared to serve others. So, two quotes that kind of come to mind, and I'm kind of a big quote guy. I like to find things in other people's words that were maybe put in a way that's very eloquent, that trigger the way I feel. I think one is, life's most urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And that's a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Again, life's most urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So that's servant leadership and that servant's heart. And that's something I've really seen and gained from Roy Turner as one of my big time mentors, is a big piece. Another along the same lines, and another point is kind of to my idea of we are not our title, is a quote by Winston Churchill, and it's, we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give. And I think those two very different people in history, certainly, but those two quotes speak to me of the servant's heart and the way a leader should really care for people that they serve and what they do. So those are my first two, right? Being vulnerable and kind of being a servant leader. And then the last would be, and I think this is the most important that none of us can lose focus on, whether you're a teacher, a coach, whatever your role is in education, remember that we all work for the students. ADs need to not lose focus on how every decision that an athletic director makes will impact kids. Not every decision will be popular with every family, with every community member, or even with every student that you serve, but it's vital that the decisions that are made, and when they are made with the understanding that they will have either a direct or indirect impact on students and their experience. That's really, to me, the number one thing that we can never lose focus on. And if you can instill that in a new athletic director, keeping your focus in every decision on how does this impact the greatest number of kids in our school, or in our athletic department, or our conference, or whatever the case may be. We have to stay student-centered, and no matter how big the decision is, even at a district level as large as ours, or even if you're an athletic director at a smaller school with a very small athletic department, every decision will have either a direct or an indirect impact on students. And what is that impact? I think those would be my three.
Oh, great stuff. And I love that you wrap it up with student-centered. It's all about the kids. And I actually have that Churchill quote on a slide in one of my PowerPoint presentations. So, great stuff. Deran, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, and I certainly encourage you to do so, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my email address is dcoe at wcpss.net. Again, that's DCOE at wcpss.net. Right now the email machine is going nonstop 24 hours a day, as you can imagine. So if anybody wants to have a conversation, certainly I'll try to find time when I can, and I'll return an email. The other thing is at the national conference, hopefully the folks listening to these podcasts are planning a trip to Denver, because I certainly will be there, and we'll be teaching a course and possibly presenting, definitely involved in some other committee work. But if you see me there and you want to chat me up or have a conversation, I would love to talk about the great things that everybody does for kids and share ideas. And I certainly would take some ideas from other people. So anything we can do as groups of athletic directors and lean on each other, steal from each other, I'm happy to give, because I always find whenever we give, we certainly get just as much in return. So.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's go ahead and do some self-promotion here. I'm going to be teaching one of the middle school courses, either 700 or 701. I never really know until about a week before. And also we'll be unveiling a brand new course, 716, Partnering with Parents. I'll be part of that faculty. What courses are you going to be teaching?
Yeah, so I'll be teaching 709, communications. I teach that with Steve. Steve Young is the chair on that one, and Steve does a tremendous job. So he's the lead on that, and I'll be teaching that with a couple of other gentlemen. So that's always great. And then I'm working on a possible presentation as well. Not sure if that's going to pan out or not, but that's my one course that I teach at the national level right now.
All right. Well, again, Deran's contact information is also on the NIAAA portal, and he's fairly active on social media as well. So, Deran, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was great talking to you and great learning from you.
Oh, well, right back at you, sir. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Thanks for listening today. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.